Okay, so New Year's Eve, I got a strange email, I thought, and it was from a name I vaguely recognized, and it was the courtroom administrator making sure that I understand the camera policy. And I immediately called her because I was like, like, what's going on here? And what had happened, in my understanding, is a few things, which included they built this new kiosk, and I thought, oh, this is so great, law library, we can all like research law and like research our cases and help our friends. So I was pretty enthusiastic about that. So I naturally would like take a JPEG of a case I wanted to study or a court case number that I wanted to memorize, because like we use this technology all over the world now. Just like you see a poster, oh, you want to take a picture, right? So it never occurred to me that this was going to be a problem. But when I think it was like some kind of astronomy thing, like the eclipse was happening, I was like, I'm going down to the courthouse to read that Carol Epling case. And I need to do a dyslexia friendly version where I read the case clean and cold with no editorializing commentary or opinion, right? As a disability accessibility, like sort of like for the internet, so the world can know that the school district had this issue with this guy, the superintendent, running his car through the woman's leg and her having to sue for 7.9 million. And the case is freely available to the public, right? And who are the public? Anybody without a wheelchair, or anybody who can walk up the stairs, or anybody who can get through the back wheelchair ramp and get up the elevator, who can drive to the courthouse. That who they're considering the public. But I consider the public at large. So the public at large, in my opinion, need to have an accessible format. So they could call the courthouse and like arrange to have a PDF transcript emailed to them. There's several barriers. So reducing barriers for different kinds of people, to me, is a disability rights issue. So in my mind, I'm just like, oh, I'll just read it, because it's basically a little soundproofed chamber where they have a little law library computer where they often put people on a WebEx, or they'll put people on you can just go look up a case or look up a case file or history. And like understanding how they file cases, to me, has been interesting lately. So I did this like reading. And then little bits of different cases like really puzzled me. Like, why did this guy strangle a cop down at Gizmos, then strangle a lifeboat customer, then go to jail and strangle someone? And so I believe I did like a little snippet of showing the public how this data entry works, where you zip around between like back arrow and like look at the case file and look at how it's charged, because I find law fascinating ever since I was like a little nerdy kid who carried around a law book to the dinner table. And so in my mind, I'm thinking like, this is digital literacy. This is, the space age. Here we have all these computers and soundproof boxes, and nothing really to dawn on me. And suddenly, I think one day I was like, oh, wait a minute. Are they going to try to say that I can't take a picture of their little computer screen for the internet? And I'm like, wait a minute. Because like in my mind, I'm so futuristic, I forget that the courts are basically luddite, which there might be a more polite way to say that. They're like against technology. But furthermore, they're technology monopolists. They want all the technology. They want all their cops equipped with cameras. They want all their courtrooms to have cameras and audio records and stenographers and all this stuff, right? So the class proportion is that the peasants, essentially that's us, have no technology, and the courts have all the maximum monopolization of technology, which that's obviously unjust, right? So I'm kind of thinking, oh, we're progressive and modern in the West Coast and we're high tech, right? Well, we're not really, because we're in the rural boonies. So I forget that the courts are really like anti-technology. They're just like, let's stop at Y2K. And so I'm like, okay. So I'm getting this phone call about this, and I'm like, oh, like my educational reading of a $7.9 million civil litigation case regarding this woman who shouldn't have her legs smashed by the school district and like have it covered up by the county and the city and the, yeah. So we definitely want that off the internet. Okay. And I'm like, I'm wondering, is this content-based censorship, or is this concern that a real reporter in a real city might pick this up, or somebody might start to draw the correlation of the shady stuff that happens that they keep largely under the rug in this county might become more popularly available as more people want to move here or find out what kind of county it is. Or, the feds, whoever the ambiguous feds are in the sky. But, so whatever. I'm like, oh. And then I just have like a long winded conversation with this lady because she's really nice, like extremely polite. Like, hats off to that. Really exceptionally intelligent, very non threatening. And I'm like, what exactly is going on here? Like, are you implying that I've done something illegal? Is this like a protocol violation? What's the deal? And she's like, well, if you don't remove these, then there will be a referral to the presiding judge. And I'm like Bo Peterson? Like, he's awesome. I'd love to be referred to him or like sit down and have a beer or whatever, like talk with him. So then I'm kind of like, oh, well, that's not really much of a punishment. But anyway, so like, I'm like, okay, whatever. Because I've dealt with unreasonable people before and I understand. Then I'm like, oh yeah, flashback to total like mind control and censorship. But they, in their defense, they do it for a reason. They're doing it because they want this whole notion of unprejudiced juries. They don't want to taint the jury pool, as Miss Reinicke. And this is all probably based on Emily Reinicke complaining. But it could have been Scott McCarthy. It could have been anyone. It could have been everyone. I don't really know. But I'm like, oh, these kiosks are so awesome. And I want to share the joy of technology. And what about disability rights accessibility? Because if you don't have an audio format, you're not being accessible to people who can't read. So and then furthermore, the right to editorialize. And like, I think one of the ones that might have pissed him off was I was like, oh, wait a minute. So the district attorney, in their rush to prosecute Emily Reinicke, had put a sort of like, I think it was a subpoena or something over to the Daily Historian. And they're like, well, we want your recording you made of the same meeting because we're trying to prosecute her for this recording and you're a journalist and she's this aggrieved whistleblower person. And then the Daily Historian was just like, F off, journalistic privilege. And so I found the little document in the case file and like made a little captioned, like I just basically said like, the Daily Historian tells the district attorney to piss off. And that could have been like the nail in my coffin of like, because I'm just like, I didn't really ask, but I didn't really think about it. And I think that almost is a sign of my kind of autistic tendency to just like, not even consider absurd opinions. Oh yeah, I'm cooking collard greens. I can smell them now. I better be careful. So I was trying to make this short. Okay, then what else happened? Well, then I'm calling the internet and I've paid for audio transcripts like numerous times from protective order, from landlord, maybe at least 3 to 4 times, okay? So, and if I get the sound file and make them into a bootleg on a YouTube, she didn't even know the answer to that. And I'm like thinking, like, I know the answer. I know, of course, it's permitted. But if they think I illegally recorded on a secret device and then smuggled it into a YouTube channel, it's literally the same audio as the $10 fee. And I paid the $10 fee and I will continue to do so, even though, like, technically I could submit before a judge, hey, I need to film or I need to record, which in honestly some jurisdictions they're not as anti-technology. And it was common practice for citizens to bring a laptop into the courtrooms in the UK that I attended, like the Supreme Court or whatever. So the like suddenly being really anti-laptop and anti-technology, to me, I'm just like, but we're in like practically the Silicon Forest or whatever. But anyway, and then I found a video of Lorraine's cat on the footsteps of the courthouse, but I had a WebEx going on a phone, and then I'm making a video of the cat, but then the WebEx is sort of going on in the background, and I'm like, oh, this definitely falls afoul. Like, I plead guilty to recording a cat video on the steps of the courthouse, and I think we need more pet therapy, no less. But overall, I think I'm just trying not to be annoying. So I'm all like, I'm gonna even delete the things I don't even need to legally delete because, you know what? I am freaking annoying, and my landlord doesn't want to admit what a horrible shyster he was, even though I heard he eventually got fined by Kirk Wintermute because I held him to task, and then eventually enough people held him to task. But he keeps doing his creepy serial bad landlording type stuff. And then, some of them all I have to do is like, like just figure out which ones are FTRs. And literally, I don't. There was one time I recorded in Judge Matthias's courtroom the time she called me Mr. Eng, and that's when I was really clueless. I was just like, what? Like, I can't record things. I record my whole life. Like, I've been video streaming for like whatever 15 years or something. I just record everything, dancing, cooking, eating, whatever. And I forgot how uptight they are. And I'm all like, if you're doing something wrong, or I think they're all just a little shy. So I hope, and so when they, I went into court the other day to watch Tyson's case, and they're like, Miss Ing, we want you to know that you're not allowed to record. And I'm like, I never would. I never have, except for once. And I think they got confused with my FTRs that I purchased, thinking those are somehow like secret recordings. And then the kiosks I didn't really view as a part of the courthouse. Somehow I just felt they're homey. I mean, I don't know. Um, but yeah, I think we should have more access to technology and more forms of digital literacy. And so I was trying to say, but I believe we should have more citizen access to the justice system, not less. And the inherent sort of anti-democratic restriction of the digital literacy of the customers of the justice system keeps them in the dark and keeps them in fear. So overall, like court watching or whatever you call it, hanging out in courthouses and going to cases, I think is a public service because it helps to hold the justice system accountable. But I think, overall, yeah, play by the rules. I never do anything undecorous, I don't think, like drop your pen or something. Or I got away with wearing like a head covering for religious reasons several times, and I think they're not going to push that issue in every courtroom. So that's good that they're somewhat respectful of that. But I think overall they should be more friendly towards getting the nitty gritty out there, because I think more legally educated public might even actually be more observant of laws if they understood laws and it wasn't so shrouded in mystery. And it is quite tediously boring too. So there's always that. I mean, it's just not as marketable as all of that. Um, well, have a great night, and oh, and here's another thing. Somebody was like thinking I was recording Tyson in the hearing, and I'm like, no, if I check my phone to make sure the volume is off, that doesn't mean I'm recording anything. And I don't know why they're so phobic of me making sure my volume is turned off. I mean, like, it's like that dicey where they're just like, and Miss Emily Reinica accused me of texting during her proceeding, which I never did, but I might have checked to make sure my volume was down, and or checked what time it was, because these devices do multiple things like check what time. So Miss Reinica is very sensitive. Oh, and I had read her motion, her badass jailhouse lawyering, and I had read it as a dyslexia friendly verbal audio. So basically, I just need to ask permission, and then that's going to be hell of tedious, and it might be time expired. But I think it's a worthy cause, and if I get around to it, I might ask more permission. But one would hope eventually the mindset would change, where disability, discrimination, and my best friend who's dyslexic back in Tennessee knew exactly what I meant, and I was like, hallelujah! I spoke to her on the phone, and then I run into the presiding judge at the grocery store. And I'm like, hi, Bo, as he's getting hustled through the grumpy New Year's Eve line, and it was kind of funny because I was like, huh, do they want me to talk to you, or what's exactly the problem? But we're all human, right? Yeah, they're humans too, and they need to be treated nicely, I would think. But it kind of was like both exhilarating, because I guess in a little bit of a way, I get confused when I get in trouble because I don't mean to get myself in trouble, but I think I sometimes get lost in the labyrinth. And I view that as a sort of autistic, aspy kind of way I have. That my dad had that too. I remember observing it in him.